Hello world, welcome back to Razor RC. Today we are doing the full review of the Team Corrali Punisher. This is a 1/8 scale 6S capable RTR truggy. It's the twin sister of the Team Corrali Kronos V2. It's been out for a few months and sells for $550 here in the United States. Main competitors of the Punisher are going to be things like the Arrma Kraton 6S and the Traxxas eRevo 2.0. And yeah, we're going to be doing the full review, ranking it in a bunch of different categories, 7 different categories. We're going to be talking about the electronics, the build, the design, the performance, the durability, support and maintenance, and finally the value of this vehicle. Giving it a ranking from 1 to 5 stars, where 5 stars would be excellent, best in class. 3 stars would be kind of average compared to those other vehicles, and 1 star would obviously be quite poor. A special shout out to Arrma RC. They've been sponsoring this line of videos, and huge shout out. We got a 5% off coupon code, so definitely use that. Check them out. They have very fast shipping throughout the world. I live in California. They're in Finland, and it gets to me in like 2 days. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't know how they do it. Elves or reindeer or something, but super fast shipping. And if you live within Europe, also 4.9 euro shipping to anywhere in Europe. So definitely an excellent place to check them out. They also carry the full line of Team Corrali parts. And if you're interested in an Arrma or a Traxxas or something else, they also carry all those vehicles, and that discount will apply. Okay, let's pop off the hood and the wheels. So super nice looking body, kind of a black and gray finish, yellow accents, really attractive. I think it's the best looking body within the Team Corrali 8 scale lineup. The wheels are these, they're not really labeled or anything, but they're kind of this intermediary style design, both good for the street and something like dirt. So kind of a all-around tire. Here's the actual vehicle. Kind of a classic 6S 8 scale type design. It is different from the Arrma. A lot of people think the Team Corrali vehicles are pretty much copies of Arrmas, but they are not. They're totally different vehicles. But general layout here, you can see the motor, ESC there in the back, servo up there in the front, as well as the battery on the other side. 6S capable, and you can also run this on 4S, I think even 5S if you really wanted to. So certainly a lot of options. In terms of electronics, the radio we got is the S2R radio, 2.4 gigahertz radio, takes 4 AA's, nice little foam wheel. It does have dual rate adjustment, throttle and steering reversing, a little bind button, and a LED. Trim little knobs here on top, so you can go up and down on the throttle and steering trims, as well as a 50-50, 70-30 trigger, depending on whether you want, sort of half and half brake and acceleration, or you want a 70 throttle and 30 brake. So fairly basic radio. I do like the foam wheel. I do kind of like this rubberized grip. Nothing super special or anything. It does actually have endpoint adjustment, although I did not find that it had enough adjustment. So for the most part, you're just going to be using the dual rates to adjust your travel. So in terms of the electronics itself in the vehicle, Curon 825 motor. It's a 4075 74 size motor, super powerful. It's got the Toro X 185, the BLX 185 ESC, excellent ESC. A lot of adjustments. You can use your regular Hobbywing programming card to adjust that. So nice tunability in terms of like drag brake, punch levels, overall brake force. So a lot of adjustments there. Definitely one of the best ESCs on the market today that come in an RTR. And it's got the 7225 air prop metal geared servo. I think it's 25 kilograms, centimeters of torque, metal geared, decent servo. I do think they're not maybe the strongest servo, so you do need to be a little careful tightening the servo saver, but 25 tooth servo is certainly improvement over some other servos out there. Spectrum. But overall, yeah, the electronics are excellent. Motor, ESC, super fast. I think this is the fastest 6S RTR combo on the market today. I mean, this thing is crazy fast. On 4S, it feels like other vehicles on 6S. Plenty of power. It's not something I think most people are going to be able to or really need to upgrade or even be able to necessarily control. So definitely excellent. ESC and motor combination. Servo's fair, decent overall, nothing really special, but nothing really bad about it, and the radio is kind of average. But yeah, overall I'm going to give the electronics an above average score, just due to the power system that they got in this thing. 4 stars out of 5. You know, the only thing I would really say is that the radio is not the best in class on the market, but everything else is actually pretty good. So big fan of electronics in the Team Corelli Punisher, and I think most people will not really want to upgrade it. Punisher came pretty well built from the factory. No real issues except that my front differential was pretty low on fluid. It's only about a quarter full, supposed to be running full 20K in the front, but I did have to refill that myself. Other than that, you know, none of the screws came loose. Everything seemed to be bolted well together. No real issues in the build. So overall, yeah, the build was really nice. Just a little bit low on the dip fluids, but that's not atypical for RTRs coming out of China. So yeah, I'm going to give 4 stars out of 5 in the build category. I think it's pretty well built. Next category is the design, and the Punisher has a really nice layout, a lot of adjustments. Team Corelli has been around for decades, mainly making race vehicles, but they've been attacking the basher market with this lineup of vehicles, and you can kind of see their race heritage. You can kind of see sort of the race tuning adjustments that they like to keep within their vehicles. Not strictly necessary for a basher, but I do appreciate that they try to incorporate some of those changes. So really, you got the servo up front with the receiver box, not a huge receiver box, but should be able to fit pretty much any receiver in there. Motor right behind there with a nice little guard protecting the pinion and spur gear. You got an aluminum center differential with a steel spur gear, EC in the back, and then battery on the other side. Nice little battery straps will accommodate pretty much any battery size you would want to run. Little bash protector here up top. In terms of some option parts, I am running the 7075 center braces, both front and the rear. I do feel like that's pretty important. Did have some issues with bending the center dog bones, and I'll get to that in the durability section, but those are pretty much the only option parts I'm running. Everything else is basically stock. Of course, you've got the big wing on the end. It actually does help with flying through the air, keeping it nice and level. All aluminum shocks front and rear, including aluminum shock caps, 3.5mm shock shafts, and nice little steel hollow balls here on the bottom. Steel standoffs, aluminum shock towers, 4mm front, 5mm in the rear. And then looking at the front end, you got sway bars. You got different shock mounting positions. You got fixed steering links, so they are just sort of plastic composite steering links, non-adjustable, but they have been holding up for me, although some people have been having issues. You got 5mm steel drive shafts, 17mm aluminum hexes, pillow ball suspension, of course, as you can see there. Sort of a minimal front bumper here, but it does wrap around, so it does actually provide a lot of protection. So kind of some cool, nice little touches that they do have, like kind of these aluminum red washers to hold in all the screws. That just adds a little bit more durability, less likely that will pull through. A lot of sort of steel nuts that they use on the backside of the screws as well, so a lot of durability built into this. Aluminum A, B, C, and D hinge pin holders, including the upper arm here, so that's kind of nice to see. I think the Arrma V5s are still plastic here in the back, but they are all reinforced with aluminum to make it less likely that the hinge pins pull out. Nice rear bracing here in the back. So that is one change from the Dementor, which is kind of like their short wheelbase version of this. The Dementor and the Punisher are almost identical, just the Punisher is lengthened a little bit with these additional plastic braces here in the back, but they are nice and sort of integrated, interlocked into that center brace to add additional stiffness, add additional bracing, less likely to bend or break. Nice little wing mount here in the back, fairly large bumper in the back. No wheelie bar, although I personally don't really see the need for wheelie bars. So anyways, a lot of adjustments. Design is excellent. The only thing I see that I would like to see in a future version is some sort of tower-to-tower brace. I do feel like there's a lot of flex in the chassis, sort of a standard 6061 chassis, nothing special, and there's a lot of flex. I do feel like these aluminum center braces are a must, but even with those, things can flex. I haven't bent the chassis, but I certainly have bent dog bones and stuff down the center drivetrain. So yeah, a tower to tower brace I think would add some durability, but that's pretty much it. The durability, the design overall I do like a lot. I think it's pretty cool that they have a lot of adjustments, a lot of tunability, a lot of option parts, even things like carbon fiber stiffeners for the arms if you want to make them a little stiffer, carbon fiber inserts into the different braces, front and rear you can add additional stiffness, those nice little touches like the aluminum washers and stuff. So yeah, the adjustability is really nice, adjustable servo saver, which the Arrmas no longer come with. So yeah, it's a really good design overall. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. Would like to see our tower to tower brace really for more durability, but other than that, really no complaints about the design. Okay, the big question everyone has is this faster than an Arrma Kraton? So obviously the Punisher, the Chronos are going to be full-on competitors to the Kraton 6S from Arrma. I will say this is definitely much faster. A lot of people think, oh, well, it's just the gearing, the Team Corrales are geared a little bit taller. No, it's not just the gearing. If you took this power system, stuck in Arrma, it would be faster. If you took an Arrma power system, stuck in here, it would be slower. Everything else being the same, other people have done that. This is definitely a fast power plant for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but this ESC motor screams, like I said, on 4S, this feels like other vehicles on 6S. I don't think anyone's going to be, disappointed with the power in this thing. It's honestly too fast for most people. Even for me, I consider myself a pretty experienced RC person, and I find the power in this thing pretty crazy, and generally looking to tame it down a little bit, but I do run full punch on this thing and it just rips. Now in terms of the way it drives, yeah, handling is pretty good. I do recommend probably tightening that servo saver, maybe a full turn or so. You can't really tighten it too much because the servo will break, but steering is pretty good. The shocks do need some help though. As you can see, I'm not running the stock springs. These are actually Kraton springs from a 6S V5. Springs on this are way too soft in my opinion, even for general purpose bashing. Maybe if you just driving on a track without really much bumps, you could run the stock springs, but for the most part, these springs are like $6 each. I do recommend picking them up. They will help out quite a bit. I also feel like the shock fluids are way too soft, front and rear. You definitely want to run some thicker fluids, somewhere around 800, 900, maybe even 1,000 CST. That's going to be somewhere around 60, 70 weight oil. 80 weight oil I think is 1,000 CST. So I would recommend picking up some different springs and some thicker shock fluids. I think that will help a lot with the jumping and landing. This does chassis slap a lot with those, and those chassis slaps will obviously cause more damage to the vehicle because it's taking much more of an impact. So in terms of the shocks, I do think it does need more work, but the rest of it, the speed, the handling, everything else on this thing is excellent. Tires are okay, if you're running on grass, street, maybe some hard packed dirt that's not too loose, they run okay, but that's another area I feel like could use some improvement. But yeah, overall, just due to how fast this thing is, I'm going to give it an above average score in the performance category, 4 stars. With a little bit of tuning, I think that gets up to a full 5 stars. If they just add some better springs and shock fluids, I think it would actually drive really well, but still above average in the performance category. The other important category for a basher is durability, and I just want to share my thoughts on that. First off, the body is pretty solid, no real damage to this. I did have to trim the body back a little bit. It was rubbing on the front tire, so if you hear that nasty screeching sound, that's probably what that is. You will want to trim it back, but the body's not super thick, but certainly adequate, and as long as you're landing it relatively well, that's not really an issue. Certainly was not for me. In terms of the rest of the vehicle, is this more durable than Arrma? I would say no, not out of the box for sure. There's just so much chassis flex, a lot of plastic chassis bracing that I think you'll want to look at upgrading. I have broken quite a few things on this thing. I've bent the center dog bones. I have bent rear dog bones, broken an arm, bent the rear hinge pins. Yeah, fair amount of damage to this thing. I certainly have broken plastic braces, not on this, but on my Dementor as well. So those are some areas that I feel like are weak points. That tower to tower brace I think would add a huge amount of durability. The main issue I have with this thing is that it just chassis flexes way too much. Can kind of taco in the middle. I have not bent the chassis, so I will say that is totally fine. but just so much bending of that, flexing of that chassis does tend to bend the center dog bone. And I do find that to be a little bit of an issue. The rear disc bracing here as compared to the Dementor, I think is a very welcome thing. I do think the durability on this is higher than the Dementor. Dementor is just kind of a flat, plain chassis with like a minimal center plastic bracing, and that to me is really just not enough. They did reinforce the back end on this thing quite a bit, so I think it is proven, but probably still not quite there in my opinion. And you probably want to look at getting a tower-to-tower brace, or I think it's Radical UK makes a sort of under brace for the chassis, kind of like a 2 or 3 millimeter chassis brace that goes down the middle. That helps out quite a bit. So something like that is definitely something I think you will look at. So yeah, in the durability category, I feel like this is below average. I personally feel like you gotta keep this to something under the 5 to 10 foot height jumps. If you're sending this 20 feet in there, I think you're gonna break stuff. Even if you're jumping 5 to 10 feet, you will want to be a pretty decent driver. You will want to land it on all fours. If you land on a corner, I think things will break for sure. Some people have broken these plastic links. I have not had any issues with those, but yeah, overall the durability I think is lower than Arrma for sure. Somewhere probably around the level of like an eRevo 2.0. I'm actually going to give it a below average score. I'm going to give it 2 stars because I do feel like there are some upgrades you do need to make out of the box, and I also feel like, I consider myself a pretty clean driver. I can generally land this thing 9 times out of 10 on all 4 wheels, and even then, if you're sending it 20 feet in the air, landing on all 4s, I think you will break some stuff. So yeah, in durability category, I'm gonna give below average score 2 stars. Other vehicles I think are a little bit tougher. The Arrma has 4mm shock shafts. They've got 6mm drive shafts. They don't really have issues with the dog bones bending because they have that tower-to-tower brace. I think the plastics are pretty solid on this thing. I know some people have pulled pillow balls through on their sort of knuckles here in the front, and I have done that, but generally it's under tumbles or something crash wise that would probably cause that. I've also done that to my Arrma, so I don't consider that a particularly weak area. It is something you would probably want to stock up on, because if you pull these out once, then you generally will want to replace these because these do start flexing a little too much or possibly even breaking. So yeah, durability wise, a little bit below average, 2 stars. I think they're on their V2 version. Maybe with the V3 they'll be up there with the Arrmas, but not quite there yet. Team Corrali is a little bit of a smaller brand here in the United States, certainly harder to get parts. A lot of times if you want option parts and stuff, you'll have to order stuff from Europe. URC does carry pretty much the full line of option parts, but not necessarily here in the United States, so you will definitely want to be ordering that. Local hobby shops, again, are probably not going to be carrying Team Corrali stuff here in the United States, so on the support side, I think they're definitely below average. In terms of maintenance, actually this thing's pretty easy to work on. I would say actually even easier than my Arrmas. Like the front rear diffs are a little bit easier to get to. There's less like stuff you have to remove. I feel like with the crane, there's more stuff. I've got a crane XP and it's a little bit more work to get at than this guy, but I think this overall is pretty easy to work on. But because of the support side, there's a little bit harder to get parts. If you're calling people, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get a hold of somebody than, say, somebody from Horizon or Traxxas. So in the support and maintenance category, I'm going to give below average score 2 stars. You definitely want to sort of stock up on parts. Get what you need. I think Team Corrali is pretty good about keeping their inventory in stock, but the distribution may be a little bit more difficult depending on where you live. So in the support maintenance category, I'm going to give it 2 stars, a little bit below average. Finally, we have the value category, and the Team Corrali Punisher sells for $550. That's pretty comparable to the other vehicles in its class. The Arrma Kraton 6S sells for $570. The eRevo 2.0 kind of varies in price between sort of $570 and $600. So price-wise, this is pretty much in line with those other vehicles. It does have really nice parts, like I mentioned, all aluminum shocks, all aluminum chassis. Nice aluminum shock towers, certainly very well equipped. The motor power system is really, really good. The electronics are definitely above average, but price wise, I'd say it's fair. It's about 3 stars, not really a smoking, screaming deal. I think this was originally like $499 or $500 with the V1s. They did raise the price to $550, so it's not really an awesome deal, but it's certainly fair for what you get. $550. Things like the Creighton, I think, are a little bit more expensive, but you get a little bit better radio, so there's additional value there. So yeah, I think it's fair within the value category. 3 stars. So my final thoughts on the Team Corelli Punisher. I like the vehicle. I do like it a little bit more than the Mentor. I feel like the durability is a little bit higher. It's a little bit easier to drive with that longer wheelbase. I think the Dementor is pretty demented. On 6S, that thing is a beast. It's an animal. This thing on 6S, it's a little bit more controllable. It's not wheeling constantly. It's not trying to like quadruple backflip every time you try to jump. So you are able to put the power down a little bit better with this as opposed to the Dementor. I also feel like the durability is a little bit higher. Additional bracing here in the rear. The chassis bends a little bit less. Overall, even though the designs are quite similar, I do think this is a more durable vehicle than the Dementor. So I do like the Punisher better than Dementor if you were to ask me which one I like better. Speed-wise, this thing is a monster. This is the fastest 6S 1/8 scale truggy RTR I think out there. If you're just doing drag races with your buddies, this bad boy is going to win. You're going to beat them all, and it doesn't really run hot either on 6S. It's probably about 160 degrees or so. Here in California, we have pretty mild weather, but yeah, I don't feel the need to add any fans or anything. I definitely don't feel the need to add any additional gearing. This thing is plenty quick, but my main concerns about this is I don't feel like the durability is quite there. I've got an Arrma Creighton. I've got an Arrma Notorious V5. That thing is a monster. Those are all very durable vehicles as compared to this. I've broken a lot of parts on all my 8 scale 6S stuff, so I'm definitely breaking a lot of things even on the Creighton EXB, and certainly breaking a lot of things on this and the Dementor. But I do feel like the durability is a little bit down compared to those. I do feel like you need to be a pretty good driver. I would not recommend this, for like someone as their very first RC car. It's just crazy fast and probably not as durable. And then the other area where you're going to be hurting is that part support is more difficult with this because Team Corelli just not as big of a brand here in the United States. So final thoughts on the Punisher. You're going to be looking at this. You're going to be looking at the Crane, maybe the Outcast or Dementor or eRevo 2.0. This is going to be the fastest, but I do feel like it is relatively fragile as compared to those other vehicles. Me personally, as long as I keep it under 10 feet and not trying to do quadruple backflips, I think this thing will survive. But once you really start sending it, you're going to be wanting to upgrade a lot of parts. You want to be upgrading some sort of brace on the chassis or these chassis braces, sort of front and rear, the 70-75 pieces. It is nice that Team Corelli provides a lot of option parts to improve the durability, but even then I feel like you do have to be a pretty clean driver. You got to be able to land this thing on all fours 90-95% of the time. If you start landing just straight on the front bumper or on just one corner or upside down or on the wing or something, things are going to break and you're going to pop pillow balls and stuff like that. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on the Punisher. Solid vehicle, definitely excellent effort from Team Corelli. Really good alternative, I think, to Arrma, but I do feel like you need to be pretty decent driver, not only just to control this thing, but also to be able to land it cleanly and drive well, and that will help a lot with the durability issues at all. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely check out your RC. We get a 5% off coupon code on this, or whether you want Arrma, Creighton, or a Traxxas, eRevo, you can pick those up as well for a discount. Thanks for watching. Definitely hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Take care.